Are you ready to live a heart-led, balanced life grounded in spirit and nature's wisdom? To step into your full power and potential? Well, you've come to the right place. I'm Olivia Ashley, a mother of 3 and a holistic wellness advocate on a mission to expand, inspire, and create a better world. Live Wildly is a community of women and mothers uplifting each other and shining our hearts to the world. Join us to remove limiting beliefs, enhance your intuition, and uncover what makes you thrive. Together, we will dive deep into holistic, earth-based, and spiritual topics while also exploring a variety of subjects to inspire and inform. Subscribe now and be a part of our journey towards living our most authentic, full lives. Welcome. I am so happy you are here. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Live Wildly. We have a really special episode again for you, as Abbie Massey and I, who I have here today with me, are recording another episode in this series surrounding the sun, where the sun is at astrologically, and receiving intuitive insight to help us navigate our life, to help us feel better, help feel grounded, really sense kind of the energies and what we can expect, noting that we really would love to say that everything is easy and breezy and so wonderful, but we know that's just not what we're here to live. Life is chaos, life is change, life is transformation. And I think really what you're going to hear today is just going to feel supportive and help you along your path wherever you are. And so today we are covering Sun in Cancer, and that is going to happen from June 21st through July 21st, 2024. And the overall theme of what we felt from the data, from the sky, from intuition is trust your gut. So this is really going to be a fiery, but a watery and an intuitive, but also grounded time and experience. And we're excited for it, but also knowing that it's going to take work and it's going to take a lot of support. And so I hope that this will be your first intro and way that you can move into this next month feeling supported and just seen as we share some of what we've gone through and what we're feeling as well. So to start us off, we're going to kick us back. If you didn't hear the last episode, you can definitely go back and listen, but also just be where you're at. And that was around Sun in Gemini. So why don't we start with a Gemini recap, Abbie?
Yeah, so our big themes from last month was up-leveling our dreams, creating emotional stability and communication with ourselves and others, and how we're making shifts with that, and just trying out new versions of ourselves. So how did that play out for you, Olivia?
Yes, this was really interesting energy because when I reflect back, I felt really like, oh, okay, we're wildest dreams and illuminating. And this is something I've really wanted for so long, of some clarity around the stepping stones, or just what do I need to do? And I kind of was given the opposite. And yet, when I reflect, it helped me. So essentially, it was a month of tons of travel, tons of connection with people. But what colored it was lots of sickness. So I just did not feel well. I was knocked down for multiple weeks. Thankfully, it wasn't terrible, but the fatigue and exhaustion really colored everything I did. And I know it happened in reflection because I was moving through this big internal emotional purging that really felt connected to way back in 2015, 2016, things that I was moving through, and all around kind of the who I was, kind of that wildness, that wildest dreams of I won't get into too much of it because it's very personal, but essentially the biggest parts was when I moved through some things going into motherhood, going into partnership with my husband, I just kind of closed down parts of myself. I fully threw myself into mother, into partner, into navigating. And I'm so proud. I think I can look back and I have no regrets. I feel really good. And yet there was pieces of me that I just let go of. And that was the crux of what came up, was me reclaiming that. But first it meant I had to do this massive breakdown to really understand that that was even there, that that part of me was there and cut off. And so I did a lot of introspection and affirming, this is actually what I want and this is what I don't want. And again, I don't think I would have gotten there without everything I moved through, but it was very uncomfortable.
And I really had to learn new ways of communication that, again, were uncomfortable, and get real with myself of really, who am I? And am I showing up in the ways that I want to show up? And what do I want to really be and create? And can I allow myself to just do that? So it was fascinating, but a lot harder than I expected. So how did you feel?
Yeah, that's so interesting. It really sounds like though you like ended as a like this fuller version of yourself. So, yeah, for me, there was a big focus on communication with others and using my voice to like stand up for what I think is right and what I believe in. And also then like reflecting internally of how do I need to shift and not ruminate or do things like that, but coming on to the other side of it, like becoming a more peaceful, joyful version of myself through that. So yeah, I relate. And that when we bring up the Sagittarius full moon, I thought it was going to be more supportive than it was for me. But at the same time, like you said, that transformation, I feel like it was. And for me personally, the Sagittarius full moon fell on my Saturn, Venus. So it was intense for me, but I was just emotionally and physically exhausted at that time. I feel like I had like a bit of a breakdown. And it was almost like I was spiraling backwards to like see old patterns, but to like release and then spiral forward in this new, healthier version. And just like, how do I deal in a healthy way when I'm overwhelmed and when things are out of my control? Like, where can I release and what can I do to like take action and impact and having that balance. So yeah, that full moon was a lot, but I do think it was helpful like after the fact. So
Yes, I definitely agree. That was the one that I was like looking forward to in a weird way. I could feel the energy. It felt grounded, but also fiery. That Sagittarius was really, I was feeling, but definitely connected to that emotionality of I was so emotional and then physically drained. And I think it was this perfect storm of, oh, just all the stuff that I had stuffed down for so long and thought, I'm fine. Like, I think I'm figuring it out, came to the surface and rocked me. And in the end, though, again, it was like a blessing. I needed it. There was something there that really helped me step through this door that I think I've been dancing around and been like, I know you're there. And I thought I stepped through you, but apparently I didn't. And yet, with going through it, I set this precedent of noting also that I'll never go back, like go the opposite way, that I drew the line in the sand and I knew what I was going to do and be and feel moving forward. And for that, I feel very grateful. And yet, moving through it was a massive challenge. So I'd be really curious, you listeners, while you think about this, really what came up in this last full moon that we just went through, because for most people I talked to, there was something pretty big that they were navigating.
yeah, and I almost wonder if we like had to like be that overwhelmed, like physically, emotionally, like I was exhausted, I wasn't sleeping well, so that we could have that breakdown. And then I was able to like talk with my partner and like ask for what I needed, and which I don't typically do. I'm like pretty independent, like I take care of myself. And but I was like, you know what, like I might need support during these times. So I feel like it was like pushing us into this like uncomfortable growth zone, but that was super necessary. So
Yes, yes. So I'm like, oh, okay,
and
we're
then
through it.
yes, and now we just had the Gemini new moon. So we're recording just a few days after the Gemini new moon happened. And for me, this was really focused on, okay, using my voice to advocate for what I think is best. Like I had some meetings with my son's school and just dealing with different things with other people. And so using my voice and just doing that and then moving like on from that, like allowing my thoughts to not sit with those things that I needed to do and continue on with other things in my life that can bring me joy. So yeah, that was kind of how the Gemini new moon played out for me. And I feel like I'm feeling really confident in using my voice when I need to.
Yes, I definitely felt similarly. Definitely lots of voice communications. How do I show up? How do I communicate? But for me too, I describe it as a leveling, and it felt more though was this settling. It was the settling to up level into the how I share, how I communicate, the modes, the avenues that I'm using to do so. And also it felt like a lot of intuition too. I had a lot of connection, lots of insight, just downloads. And that's how I operate. So that felt normal, but it was this coming back online. Whereas I feel, especially since moving through my last pregnancy, even through a bit postpartum, everything was quiet. And I definitely noticed I've gone through periods of heightened intuition and then quiet, but I can tell I'm stepping into this next space and it's all connected. It's through my voice. The throat chakra has been coming up so strongly too. When I was just channeling for myself right before this, I got a bunch of information around it felt like there was energy upgrades of sorts. There's this frequencies that the sun is giving off and the moon is giving off that are helping to remove stagnancy, remove a collective barriers. We all kind of have it in a different way in our throat. And so also reflecting, how does your throat feel? How are you taking care of yourself? What are you noticing around that? And I want to, before we move on, do you have any recommendations, or maybe we can talk about like practices or rituals around the moons? Anything we would suggest to the listeners or ways that we navigate the moons when they come up?
Yeah, I mean, with the moons, I always try to put out moon water, and even if you don't do that and like drink the vibration of the moon, it's coming into you, but I like to do that as a little ritual for myself. And so I do that at times, and then I look at like the themes of Gemini, and like new moons are a great time for setting intentions, and then full moons are a great time for reflecting on, okay, what intentions have I set and how are things coming to fruition. And so yeah, I think just reflecting is important during moons.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. And my only build would be I love oracle cards. I love pendulum work, journaling, channeling, anything that really illuminates some of the things that maybe I'm feeling, but I can't get a full read on, or I'm looking for support. I can ask questions. I can seek support in a different way and then receive some information so I can feel grounded or settled. As I move through the moons, I also love spending time outside. I always try to go for a late night walk and just look at the moon.
Oh yeah.
Feel into it with no intention out of just, this is beautiful and look at all the stars and this is amazing, but having small practices that will reconnect. And I also love to charge and clear my crystals around the moons and this new moon, which usually I do full moons. I actually was really called to grab a lot of my crystals and go put them in all the windows. And I don't know what that was about, but I trusted it. And this big, beautiful white butterfly flew by right as I was doing it. And I was like, okay, I'm listening. This is fine. And I think a lot of it is just listen. What nudge are you feeling around the moons? What do you need to support yourself? What practices can you bring in? Because the moon is just so introspective and supportive, illuminating in a myriad of ways, depending where they are. But thank you. I was just curious.
And then I would just say like those are all wonderful things like we can do like during the moon, but also like taking the time like a few days after the energy has moved on to then look back. Sometimes for me, I can't tell like what is going on at that moment, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I can kind of see what the theme was when I get a little distance from it.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, it brings us to the crux and the bulk of this episode, which is going to be talking about Sun in Cancer, which it is moving into that on the 21st of June. So why don't you kick us off with all your astrological wisdom and let us know about Cancer?
Yes, and this is special for you, Olivia, because it's your birthday month. You're a Cancer sun. So Cancer is a cardinal water sign, and so it definitely has more to do with our emotional body. And I just think it's really interesting as we move through the signs of the zodiac, how the signs shift and they make up for like what the one before doesn't do. So like Gemini is such a mental energy. And then when we come to Sun and Cancer, we're much more in our emotions. So because Cancer is ruled by the moon, and the moon is shifting signs every 2.5 days. And this is why Cancers are often viewed as moody, because with that moon shifting through all the signs, there are these subtle shifts in how we just react to things day to day. It takes like reflecting, but maybe look at that and notice like, okay, how am I shifting? And for Cancers, I think they're just so connected that for them, it's just more prominent. And you might have other planets in Cancer too that might not just be your sun, but that are affected by that. So Cancers do have strong feelings. They also like to nurture the people, specifically the people closest to them. They're nurturing, but they like that intimacy of their closest family or friends. Yeah, so after a month in Gemini, I feel like we're moving and getting all these other people's perspectives and being social. We're like going back into our shell, like the shell of Cancer, back into ourselves and focusing on like, how do we feel about what's been going on? And you might want to spend time at home or with your family.
Yes, I can definitely relate. I'm so excited for this period. And I think any fellow Cancers out there can attest, and anyone. And when that sun goes into your home sign, it feels supportive. I feel so grounded and excited and playful, but I definitely am a hermit. I love my house. I love just being within. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges for Cancers are how do we make that balance of getting that support and that nourishment while also getting out and nurturing and doing the things that we also love. And if I can build on this with the messages from the Akashic Records and the intuitive insight that the sun really wanted to share, what really showed was the sun is beaming out rays of relaxation. It's asking us to settle, to surrender into ourselves, to get outside, to bathe, to lounge, to be in joy and be in simplicity, and noting that the sun is really creating a lot of supportive aspects right now. However, if we are unable to do that, or maybe we're doing it too much and we're not doing the doing, but it feels more if we're too stuck in not allowing ourselves the time to relax or the time to get out of the do and just let us be, there is this fiery aspect that was really coming through that you might be burned a little bit, whether it's a feeling a bit of chaos or burnout. There is this request to settle into yourselves a little bit more. With the knowing that, I think why this is coming up is because there's a lot of energetic upgrades that are coming and sinking in. There's tons of solar flares that are happening. The sun is at one of its heightened periods that it goes through in its natural cycle. So we're having tons of sun ejections. The solar flare and the ejections of that energy is coming towards us. But also we know that our solar system, we are moving into a space of higher frequency within the solar system. So I say that because when I say energetic upgrades are coming, that feels a little untethered, or what are you talking about? What it feels like is we are all collectively, and our earth and the beings in our solar system, there is just this influx of new energy and different frequency. And so that's uncomfortable. And yet it feels very important. What it kept showing me was these phoenix activations, and not that we are the phoenix and we are reborn and rebodied, but we are the pile of ash and we are this little seed that is emerging going, oh, I think I'm going to rebirth and come out, but we're not really there. So I think just noting that is really important, that this is happening. And then the other piece was really around nature, specific to feels like the sun is going to make itself known through these imbalances that I think we've talked about a bit in previous episodes, and it's been coming through a lot of this. There's too much fire and not quite enough water. We're being asked to really lean into more water, that flow, that support, that emotionality. It feels like there's possibility of more wildfires, of droughts, even flash floods to try to rebalance. But again, it's so imbalanced that we're being asked of how can we support this balance. So specifically what I was shown was around cleaning up toxicity. And we're going to talk a lot more about that around this purging is kind of what I think of with toxins is, but this purging specific to maybe household products, the way we dispose of our trash, but how we eat and nourish ourselves. There's this ask to just clean up our space, clean up our bodies, clean up our nature and our natural system. So something that asked was, how can we support the earth? And it gave, can we plant some native wildflowers on our property or native trees? Could we go volunteer, have acts of service to help support, clean up our local waterways or parks? And the other piece was, a lot of this is helping to clear, but as we plant more of the plants, it will also help pull water down and pull rain down and create these little mini ecosystems. So leaning into that, if that at all calls to you. And then one of the last things was specifically, again, a bit more around purging, just really checking in, purging and burning away the habits that don't nurture you, don't help you thrive. The sun wants you to flourish, but you must find and kind of clear out what's stopping you from doing that.
That's really interesting. And another thing, so each sign like rules a part of the body. And so Cancer rules the breasts and the womb as it's, associated with the mother, but it also rules the stomach and the lymphatic system. And when I think about like what you were saying about needing to relax and I feel like we need to go within because we need to digest what just happened. And so the stomach is literally digesting our food and possible toxins, things like that. But so we're digesting on a physical level and then digesting also on an emotional level. And it also rules the lymphatic system, which helps us release toxins. So, again, you can take that on the physical level or on a more metaphorical, emotional level. But I think both really need time to digest and release. So
yes. So be there for yourself, nurture yourself, your home, your life, and almost there's an invitation of stepping into that flames, letting that help you burn, letting that help you activate and have the momentum to take action in the small ways of changing things, but then also lean into the supportive water, that Cancerian emotionality, that introspective to also I think it's get the insight of where you need to take action, the insight of what needs to shift, what is the alignment you're really looking for, and what is that vision you're holding. But this Cancer sun feels really supportive and yet fiery. So there is a balance to strike, and it feels like it's going to bring challenges and make you really look at stuff, but in the effort of it's purposeful. Okay. I'm really excited about that. I'm just so ready. So then we will also, during this period on the 21st as well, as we move into Cancer, we will have the Capricorn full moon and as well the summer solstice. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so Capricorn marks the beginning of summer and it's the lightest day of the year. So I always like to celebrate the solstices and the equinoxes. And so that's just a fun way to recognize those shifts that we're going through as we cycle through the year. Yeah. What do you do for the solstice?
Yes, I always try to see the sun, and that's something I've been making more of a point of. But during the solstice, I make a point of it. I will be up. Maybe I'll take a walk or prioritize a hike during the day, or maybe I'll go take the day. I think mental health days are real. I advocate so strongly, especially within my other work of you need to support yourself. And so taking a vacation day or taking a sick day and go be in nature or be in your home, just have some type of communion with it. And I definitely will prioritize also sharing it with kids and talking about what this means and maybe see what they want to do or do an activity around it. And then also prioritize checking in. So whether that's journaling or channeling or oracle cards, just feeling connected to myself, because I think it's such a reminder of the fluctuations, the ebbs and flows, the cycles, the seasons, and just it's so beautiful. We've made it back to this time of year, and I feel so grateful because winter is hard. I think like I
It's
really get just bogged down. I love it. I love the snow, the cold. So I feel like I can cherish these moments more because I'm so present in these moments. So that's probably what I'll try to do. Nothing planned yet, but what about yourself?
Yeah, I think the getting into nature because they just it feels like you need to be outside for me at least to connect to the sun, to the earth, to those cycles. I like to stay up, to the sun sets as well. So just like enjoying all that sun time, being outside, to eat, like eating outside for summer solstice. And yeah, just enjoying. It's also my son's birthday, so we do a lot with him, but we just definitely like picnicking or doing things like that, enjoying a popsicle, like, just
Yes.
like enjoying what all that light and sun brings.
Yes, I do want to mention a couple herbs that I think could
Mm.
be supportive around this time. And also the reminder that you can make sun tea and moon tea. So you can put in some herbs in a jar, have a cover on that, and let it sit out in the hot sun, and it will just brew throughout the day. And some of those I would recommend would be lemon balm, which is really light and is of the mint family and is just unnerving. It will help you relax. And it also has a really mild, sweet flavor. Lavender also calls out to me. It's almost a little cooling for me, but it's fresh, it's supportive, it's relaxing. And then another one is calendula, which is that bright yellow flower that always reminds me of the heart. It's of the sun, it's a sun herb, and is just one that is overall supportive. I think you can't go wrong with most of the herbs, but those would be three I would recommend. And just maybe picking one or two, whatever calls to you, and maybe brewing yourself a special tea that
I
day.
love that sun tea. I am going to do that, Olivia. So yeah, so the moon, it's the first day of Cancer. And what's really cool about this month is that we actually have two full moons. We have one on the first day of Cancer and the last day of Cancer. So that is rare. I mean, it probably happens about once a year. So yeah, I just kind of want to talk a little bit about the cycle of the moon. So a full moon is illuminating, allowing for awareness where we previously didn't have awareness. So since the sun is lighting up the moon, it's allowing you to see things that might have been hidden. And we actually have to go back to the Capricorn new moon to look at this Capricorn full moon. So that was in January of 2024. And that's when we planted like the seeds that we've now are bringing to manifestation here with this Capricorn full moon. And since we have two, it's just kind of elongating it and bringing out different aspects. But, you can go back and look at January and what were you thinking about? Like, that's a pretty easy time because usually at the beginning of the year, we're thinking about, oh, what do I want to do this year? What are my goals? And this is an opportunity for us to like reflect on what have I done with that? Like, what am I feeling good about? Like, where have I noticed that I've actually like made changes? Or like, where do I maybe need to let go of something that didn't come and that's okay? Or like this developed and I actually don't want that and I need to shift. So full moons, it feels like, oh, it's just one day, but it's actually this longer cycle, which I've realized as I've studied astrology, there's all these cycles layered on top of each other, but they're always like much longer than just one day. And the moon, like it looks like it's full for like 3 days. So I would say that energy is coming for the day before and the day after the full moon, and the full moon is just the apex of it. And since the moon's in Capricorn, though, we're like a little bit detached from our emotions. So Cancer is so emotional and just like really heavy on how we're feeling. But then the moon is like pulling us a bit away from that. And it wants us to be like disciplined and conscientious and also to like support people maybe more through like acts of service or doing something for them on the more physical plane. And then with like our own goals of what we've been thinking about in Gemini and working on and talking through with others, things might feel like a little bit confusing because of that Neptune influence. Like, and I feel like it's just pushing us to like kind of let go of control of like, this is how it has to manifest. And instead, like shifting what our mind thinks. And then it's important we continue to take action, but just like being flexible, we might need to adjust like what we thought the next step was. And I think if we take care of our physical body, because the opposite of that Neptune, you can get some good information when you look at the opposite of a square, and that's in Virgo. And so Virgo is asking us, kind of like you were saying with like herbs and things like that. That is really wonderful to do because we just really need to take care of our physical body, whether that's exercising or eating really well, or taking time to rest, because it will help us integrate that energy that's coming in from this moon.
Okay, that's really helpful. And I keep feeling like I need to ask you, do you have a sense when you reflect back to January of maybe what those themes might be, especially knowing that this is in Capricorn and the specifics of, I'm like, can you remind us what Capricorn really might, I think you might have said that, but just again, because I'm curious what you were feeling, I'll share when I reflect back.
Yeah, Capricorn, I mean, is typically a time where we're seeing a long-term goal. Like, what is the vision of that? And how do we just like work steadily towards that? And so for me, I feel like, I'm really working on my house, and like what I see that's coming is like today we just literally had a pod dropped off. We're going to take everything out and paint. So I think during this time it's going to be like us actually doing that. And so like we're seeing possibly some of that actually coming to fruition of these were some goals for the year. Like now we're working on that and like taking action surrounding that. We'll see what comes up because the pod was just delivered, but just thinking through, like what was I wanting to accomplish this year? And we're like halfway through. So
that was a scary moment when you just said that. And I realized you're right. We are halfway through, but how amazing. I think it speaks to, we've talked about a bit, this year being so fast and moving so fast. So thank you for sharing that. And yes, I'm curious to see what that will feel like. And I mean, you're obviously taking progress, so there's going to be progress, but maybe will what actually happens meet the expectations of what you're hoping for? If not, hopefully even it will be better than that. But when I reflect back, I started this year, I want to say almost with a little bit of unsureness of clarity. I have really felt this mistiness, this fogginess, but yet this momentum specific to stepping into being a leader, stepping into being really using my voice and being authentic and making impact. And in my 9 to 5, that came into reality. I mean, I had received a transition of a position, which allowed me to do that, but I really hadn't seen the fruits of what that was going to be and know what that is looking like. And now I have a rock star team of 4 people now under me that I get to shape and mold and support. And then my other side was wanting to improve this podcast, wanting to really call forth even more and help others really ignite themselves and ignite that spark and find your curiosity. And so that took a lot of growth of learning video editing, learning other pieces, and also navigating this remembrance. And this kind of will get me into what the full moon message was around from the Akashic Records, but this remembrance of, I think I want to write, and I think I want to continue really going full steam into this. And so there's been a lot of transitions and shifting around that because of who I have been and where I'm trying to get are 2 different places. And so there's had to be a lot of growth and surrendering and acceptance, and also kind of what we said, that growth zone, having to push out. So that is what I'm curious. Like, okay, how is that going to come back? Or what is that? What's going to highlight during this time? And the records wanted to share that it's time to get real with yourself. It's time to step into the doer who does things intentionally with the right amount of power and with higher consciousness also helping to lead. And I want to add, more so than higher consciousness, that is one aspect. So connecting and gaining that insight. but then settling it in and trusting your gut. So taking that and going, okay, this is what really has landed, or this is what's coming from within, but it's this co-creation that is really happening. The other piece is the world's frequency is one of discord right now. And I think everyone can agree with that to some extent. And so it's this ask to how do we step into the frequency of creation, of love, of balance, of nurturance, that remembering we are here to flourish. We are here to feel supported. And yes, there's a lot of systems and a lot of things in our day to day that doesn't work. And so how do you begin to advocate for yourself? How do you begin to remove anything that's holding you back? And how do you move things forward, but in small, simple steps that will knowingly make incremental change? And again, it's not all about doing. I never want to advocate for that because there is a place and a time to do. But I think a lot of us have to get really real with ourselves and go, we're burnt, we're exhausted, we're emotional. And this whole period is really going to highlight that. How do we surrender? How do we relax? How do we nurture ourselves again? Anything to add based off that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this can manifest in many different aspects of your life, right? Like for me, my home is one, but yeah, it can show up in lots of different ways. And I like how you're saying, we kind of need to go within to know what that next step is. Like our mind can kind of make up what we think we need to do, but that's not always going to be the path forward.
Mm-hmm. And the animal that is really coming through, and especially specific to this full moon, was a turtle. And even this morning, we went to a park and there was a hat that was left by some child, and there was a big turtle on the front. And I love those moments of synchronicity of, okay, thank you, I see you, and that reminder. And what the turtle wanted to share was this energy of slow, steady, connected, strong, ancient. Turtles have been around for around 200 to 300 million years. I mean, how incredible. So they're thoughtful, they're adaptive, they're diligent with their work, they're loving, and we're really being invited to be more like the turtle. Be independent within yourself, be strong within yourself, knowing your role here is to support the collective, and yet change really begins with you. That is how we support the collective. That's how we have acts of service. We have to be within ourselves, be strong within ourselves, be really just be you, be unique. That is what the world is needing right now. And also this invitation to tap into this ancient grounded power of our ancestors, of our genetic knowledge, of looking back of where we came from and the roots of ourself and our lineage and our ancestors and our grandmothers and our grandfathers and nature. And this feels really important of this. It feels like a big remembrance for the collective, especially this group, if you're listening here.
I love that. I've actually seen a lot of turtles and tortoises recently too. We went on a trip down to the sand dunes and we went to this like alligator farm and there was all these ones we interacted with, and that also it reminds me of Mars in Taurus when you talk through that. And Mars in Taurus is sextiling Mercury during this moon. And I feel like it's just, Mars in Taurus is just diligent. It's just working, not necessarily at a fast pace, but slow and steady, like a turtle. And it just is taking those steps forward. And in Taurus, it's all about like in nature, connected to the earth. And so I think that's really important, and that Mars is supporting us in this moon of moving forward.
That feels really good. So let's take us to the next moon, which will be the Cancer new moon on July 5th. So what will that seem to bring us?
Okay, so the Cancer new moon is, since it's a new moon, it's a new beginning, and it won't fully manifest until the full moon in Cancer, which will be in Capricorn. So 6 months. So the energy is starting now, and the sun and the moon are getting on the same page. When we have a new moon, they are coming together, and that's allowing them to connect and like share, like, this is what's going on, and they're like getting on the same page. And so that's really interesting. In this moon, Venus is conjunct the sun and the moon is ruled by Cancer because that's the sign of the moon. What's really interesting is in this moon, Ceres is opposing the sun and the moon. And so that's an asteroid in the asteroid belt. And it has to do with having the fruits of her labor come. Ceres is a god of agriculture, but her daughter was taken by Hades and brought to the underworld. So it's like also this grief, and her daughter comes back in the spring. So like winter is like this time where she's not with her daughter and she's grieving, but yet she like, still does the work and like goes through the cycles and comes back. So that's really interesting. And I feel like, so with this moon, feelings might come up where you like weren't fully nurtured in your childhood. And we are working on healing these moons. So Chiron, which is another planetary body that has to do with healing, is squaring this moon. And so I think it's going to be coming up so we can heal whatever that is. We're really having a lot of support in this moon from Mars and Uranus, Saturn, and things show up differently for everybody depending on where it is in your chart or just lots of reasons. But maybe you'll manifest an interaction where you have the courage to talk about something, to talk about where you weren't feeling fully nurtured, or maybe something will just come up that will remind you of that, and you'll be able to like see a different perspective and move towards like letting that go and healing. It's going to be a journey, it can take up to that 6 months, but I think it's going to be like this initiation. And these sorts of things, like it will come up so we can free ourselves from it. And, these things might be holding us back, and maybe in our career, because Cancer is like our intimate emotional life, but then how do those beliefs that we have or things that we've just held with us since we were young, like impact us? So yeah, that's what I'm getting about this new moon.
Okay, that tracks a lot of what I was feeling as well in the records, which was firstly, it shared a lot about just the water, a time of heightened emotions, the swinging of the pendulum, expect mood swings, yet know they come with purpose. And it feels, again, connected to that wounding, that inner child, time to be introspective. So I think it's going to request and kind of force your hand to look at some of those things that are underneath, there are important messages to be shared. And it feels really the wounding that's going to come up is going to be aligned in helping you step more into your path and your purpose and more full embodiment. So it's not going to heal it. It's not going to fix everything, but it's going to start to help illuminate. That word has come through a lot, this illumination of these pieces of ourselves. And the Cancer aspect is going to help nurture this and will help nurture these ideas of what like your ahas that are going to come through when you're moving through it. But it might not feel good in the moment. And so it's asking to journal, to connect in whatever way that calls to you, that supports you, that helps you move through these moments and these emotions. And maybe it's talking with a friend or therapist or going for a walk, but just doing something to help you have the space and the grace to really hear it, and then noting that you will integrate at some point. And so they really wanted to show the visual of it's a butterfly shedding its cocoon. And so, I mean, you're stepping out, but it's that discomfort of that moment of shedding. So believe in your power, your purpose, your place in this time. Trust the timing, flow through the moment, let these emotions rise and fall like the waves. Call into the element of water to clear and cleanse, and then ask the earth to ground and support. These feel very important. Like they're very important times. I think every moment is an important time in space, but these aspects, when we're feeling into and also picking apart so specifically, like we do in this podcast, I find it so fascinating to see the threads and the commonalities, because I think a lot of what we've shared in the last 3 episodes of this series has been pretty consistent of massive time of transformation, lots of fire, lots of fast pace, but then coupled with this balancing act of support, introspective, this healing, all for the betterment, but it's very uncomfortable. It's not roses and beauty. Like we can find those, but we have to get honest that this is a really challenging but important time for, I think, our society and collective.
Yes, yes, I agree. Yeah, and then how do you balance that? I feel like we're being asked to, okay, move through these things, and I'm curious what will come up for both of us, but then also be able to then enjoy those small moments of joy. And like for like last month, it's asking us to like move up and like our emotional stability. Like we're going to feel emotions, it will be uncomfortable. And how do we then handle that and not like drown in that? And so, and that's maybe why we get like a second Capricorn full moon for like additional support in this. So yeah.
Yes, let's go there. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, at the last day of Cancer, July 21st, we're having another full moon at the last degree of 29 degrees. So what's interesting with the moons is it's always in the sign opposite from the sun. So this axis is the Cancer Capricorn axis. And that will be true for all moons, is that it's in the opposite sign. And that axis shows us certain things. So Capricorn and Cancer is like the balance of our home life and our public life, like our intimate connections, and then like our professional connections, or like the image we portray to the outside world. So I think this month is a lot of that back and forth. And so when we look at the moon, Capricorn, we look at what the ruler of Capricorn is, and that's Saturn. And so Saturn is influential on both of those moons. And then there's just some other aspects playing in. So the moon is conjunct Pluto. This is interesting because Pluto is still in Aquarius, but it's since the moon is at 29 degrees of Capricorn and then Pluto is at 0 degrees of Aquarius, they're still right next to each other, but they're out of sign. So it's an interesting conjunction. But Pluto is also this transformative aspect of no, things are changing, something is done, we are moving through and transforming. And then we have supportive aspects coming from Neptune and Uranus, and Chiron's involved again. So that healing of wounds. And so I just feel like this moon is helping our energies to become more integrated. Like we're integrating our mental, emotional, and physical bodies. And we're continuing to move away from making decisions solely with our mind. So moving into how do we make decisions from like an emotional, intuitive level, but like in a mature, stable way, like where we're going into ourselves, like you said, of like going into our gut and feeling that what is true for us, and instead of relying so much on our mind.
Yes, I love that so much. And I think, again, this is another thread that we're really being asked to drop out of this mental mind, out of the monkey mind, and settle into our body and make decisions and find that vision, find that understanding through your gut, through your intuition. But like you said, in that healthy, supportive, mature way. And also it makes me think of human design and really looking at what your authority is. So mine is a splenic, and I know that's intuition. And so that is I just know, and I get it, and it's here. And so I've really been focusing on how do I continue to trust that? And so maybe looking up that for you and seeing what your authority is. And what came through in the records was really just supporting this as well. So this is overall a period that's asking you to trust and remember your mission. So hold the vision, let that be your guidepost, and note that you don't have to fix everything and move everything and be like, oh, I'm not okay till I'm there. We're really being asked to stop getting caught up in the future, stop looking back and worrying about what you did or didn't do and what has come before you, and learn from that wounding, learn from the challenges you've been through, and let that fuel your vision and what you're moving towards to, because that is all a part of that wounded healer and that activation of really stepping into our power and being able to share and help support and be of service. And so it feels like there's a lot of there's quite a bit of a reprieve with this moon from our mind and from that focus. Maybe it will help us adjust back into our gut. And then again, most important, just be present, be here, notice what's coming up, and that this is really purposeful of what we're moving through.
Yeah, I think it's also, so like you were saying, of like trust the vision, like we still have this vision of what we want to manifest, but with the moon being in Capricorn, because Capricorn is this like creating something bigger that takes like the long term. And in order for us to do that, to go into this new mission that we have to, in a sense, be a little detached in the fact that like that's going to put us in our growth zone. We haven't done these things before. Like you said, you have to learn video editing or whatever, but it can do that without, it's like that balance of not getting emotional in this unhealthy way about things, but then trusting what is coming through in our body. And that you might need to like physically move your body, do things like that to help you connect to that. And yeah, I think just our next steps they're not going to be logical of like, okay, I know that like this is maybe my end goal of things that I want to do. And my mind has this whole plan of it's going to go like this and this and this. But I think we're being told your mind doesn't have that figured out. Like this is going to come through to you and in through your body and in through your intuition. And you just kind of have to trust that. Like, oh, I didn't think that would be the next step, but it is. So I'm gonna try that and trust that.
And not get overwhelmed, not be overwhelmed with all the things that you feel you need to do. Just take action or do the things that you can do and feels right, like this right next step. Really get out of that analysis paralysis that I really get stuck in, and then I just stop and I hermit and I don't do anything. So notice your modes of kind of what do you default to when things are hard, and how do you support yourself through that?
Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting month. Then I just looked at Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Mercury and Venus are moving really fast. And we, Gemini has felt so busy, just going, lots going on. There's still going to be lots coming up. Mercury's in Cancer for half of the month, and then it moves to Leo. And so Mercury in Cancer can, make emotional decisions, but they also like are considerate of others. They like consider others in their decision making, and also might bring up memories from the past, which makes sense because Cancers have good memories, especially for emotional things. And then when it gets to Leo, it's getting more, Mercury performs in a more creative way, like big picture thinking, getting excited by ideas, and it can motivate others too to like get excited. It's just confident and likes to move forward in the way that they think is best, not necessarily like looking for feedback from others. And then Venus will be in Cancer for most of the month. And in Cancer, it just likes harmony. It's very devoted to the people that it loves. It's just dreamy, enjoying like the summer. And then when it moves to Leo, it's, it's still warm-hearted and generous. It's also confident, and it likes to be like admired by others. But so I think Mercury and Venus will just be supportive to us. And then Mars, I feel like Mars is the most important because Mars is going to retrograde in Cancer later this year. It's going to move into Cancer in September, but the retrograde period will be once it gets to 17 degrees Cancer. So this is going to be about October. So this month, just pay attention to what is coming up, because this is going to like come back around. When Mars comes back through from October to literally mid-April. So it's a long period of time that it's going to be transiting Cancer. So just notice because it will be reactivated during that time period.
Okay, that was all really helpful. And just a reminder that for everyone, this period, it really seems there's a lot of Cancer, there's a lot of Capricorn, and Gemini still kind of fluid through there. Go look in your chart and see where those are hitting in your chart, because that's also going to illuminate where and what houses and what parts of your life are going to be extra highlighted. I think really just look and distill what that looks like. And if you are unsure or you need support, Abbie can definitely help if you're interested in a reading or something to that degree to just get you settled into your birth chart and have some support through this season. So take note there. And then I wanted to share on top of that what intuitively I received around this. And again, I think a lot of this is just rehashing the same themes. So I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot this month of just what is coming forward. But there is this balance of there's this love and this play and this relaxation that I think is at Cancer. But then there's this destructive, fiery intensity force that's also coming. And so how do you hold both sides? And how do you support and feel held when times are challenging? And how do you let yourself be in those moments, not to fix them or judge them, but just go, this is how I feel and I honor this moment. And this is how I feel I honored that moment, and noting that you're not any better because you sit in positivity and love more than most, or like you're hard on yourself because you're just stuck in your negative thinking. It's all just a spectrum, but can we somewhat step back, that I under the I, separate ourselves from that and noting that at our core, you're okay. It's just there's a lot that we're being stripped of in order to rebuild. And I really got this picture of us standing out in nature, just fully naked, being exposed, and yet this feeling of this purity, of this resetting. And so like I've said, there's this collective purification at hand in order to help, it feels like, raise the frequency. And so the things that are not in alignment with that need to fall away. So continue to note that this purging and this ebbs and flows are going to be happening, but don't get caught up in that. So settle into the fluctuation of your energy body, your feelings, your health. What are your support systems? Who do you go to when you need extra support? Or what are if you break up the body into the 4 bodies, a mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual, what are your systems that you go to, your toolbox? I think this is a really important time to just remember and connect and start adding in things that you're being called to, and lean on the sun and the water for support these next few months. There's so much being illuminated, and whether you're called to get a reading, I do them as well, whether it's around intuition and just wanting to know yourself better, really look for others and your people in your community, and don't feel like you need everyone. You need those who you're drawn to and who you're really feeling supported by in this moment. Yeah. So that feels super important. And I guess I will keep talking in the sense of one of the last big things that I asked was just overall guidance for the collective. And I will just summarize it really that it is your birthright to be a curious creator, to be in love, to be in harmony, to feel like you can just kind of be and watch and move through the seasons and move through the cycles and just really feel okay no matter what's coming up, that this is a reality of creation, of exploration, and we get really caught up in our minds. And so let's listen to our gut. Let's drop into ourselves, be in flow, relax, have fun, lots of transition, challenge, upheavals, endings, purgings, this massive, bigger timeline that we're asking to show up for and be in alignment of. And how do we really trust and surrender to that knowing? So again, that Phoenix energy, and we're not the full embodied Phoenix. We're in the midst of coming out of the ashes.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like you're saying, that knowing that our challenges, the transformation is uncomfortable because we're doing something differently. But I really believe that it is to push us to just a more positive version of ourselves. Not that we'll never feel sadness or anger or those things, but that we are coming into our power of knowing that we can co-create with the universe, and also like focus on what brings us joy, and just knowing that we're going through these things for a reason, and that helps make it a little bit easier to go through them.
Exactly. Yes, for sure. And the affirmation this month that we were given is, I listen to my gut and surrender to transformation. So write that down, speak it to yourself now, and just trust that we're setting that intention and we're affirming that we can listen to ourselves and we surrender to this time of transformation, noting that it is for the better, even though it's probably very uncomfortable.
Olivia, will you tell us how you listen to your gut, or how your gut like appears to you?
Yes. So this is interesting because I've really had this conversation with myself of, is there a separateness between gut and intuition? Or for me, is that really one and the same? And so I think it can feel a little bit different. I think I sometimes can have this like gut knowing of just like, ooh, that is truth. This is something I need to take action on. But my intuition, the way that that comes is through clairaudience and clairsentience, like that knowing. And then I'm very visual, and I can't remember which clair that is, but it's like I'm seeing, I will receive higher insight or knowledge from my high self, or just that intuitive knowing. And so there is, like, I would say, a little bit of a distinction between that gut of, I think that's really primal. I think it's like a built-in sense.
Like for me, it like almost is more of like a yes, no.
Yes,
I'll like ask
base.
myself a question, and then I can feel like a yes or no. And it doesn't give a lot of like detail, but it's just, yeah, like you're saying.
Yes. And I feel like it's a part of this broader intuitive umbrella, but I do want to just claim that I think there is a bit of a distinction. And so noting, I think that was a great place to start. If you're unsure, ask yourself a question, and especially one that you know the answer to is, my name's Olivia. Yes, no. Feel where that is in your body. And then ask it again. Okay, my name's Abbie. Yes, no. Okay. You can start to get that gauge. And then also notice, what are your intuitive gifts? What are you right now most sensitive to or aligned with? For me, I've always been very visual. Like, I think it's that Cancer, that dreamy, I'm imaginative, and I'm able to access that realm. But when it really clicked in and I was able to channel and connect, that came through my hearing. So noticing too for yourself, what is your maybe clear dominance, and just starting to learn and have fun, because I think it can really support.
Yeah. And so I want to play with that more. Like I've been doing the asking myself questions, yes, no, but then also being like, oh, like, should I go to that event? Or like having it guide me, like, is this the time to go to the grocery store? Or should I go in the evening? Like just little things that like don't feel like it super matters, but like I think just practicing with that, and then like noticing like when you trust that, like what happens. So
yes. And I really do want to share that Abbie is a beautiful, talented astrologer. And so as you're listening to this, if you want to learn more or get more insight to you and your specific birth chart, please reach out to Abbie. I think you could get a lot of support, and that's just a wonderful way to also grow and navigate. And the more knowledge and data you have, the more you can really feel empowered and settled. And then I'll also plug for myself of, I do intuitive readings, so Akashic record readings.
And I can testify they're amazing. She has done a few for me, and it's been so helpful. So
thank you. And so if we can support, I really like to help illuminate what you're moving through right now, what blocks, what worries, what questions you have. And so please reach out, even just if you want to connect on a deeper way. Everything is in the show notes. And we're just so pleased and excited that you're here pressing play and listening and being part of our community. And if you want anything else in this series, if you want to know anything more specifically, if you want us to add anything in, please just start a conversation. We'd love, love, love to hear any feedback or insight that you would like to share. But otherwise, I will come back to that affirmation of, I listen to my gut and surrender to transformation, and wish you a beautiful Cancer sun season. So thank you, Abbie, as always, for being here and being such a great co-host.
Absolutely. Thank you, Olivia. Have a wonderful solstice, everyone.
Yes, enjoy the solstice. Yay.
Thank you for joining me on Live Wildly. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an empowering story, insightful lesson, or transformative tip. Together, we can continue to challenge the status quo, enhance our intuition, and uncover what makes us come alive. To dive deeper into our community of changemakers and access exclusive content, head over to my Substack, Trust and Pixie Dust, and subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram at WildlyOlivia for inspiration and updates. Remember, we are the changemakers in this world. Keep shining your light and living wildly. Until next time, I'm Olivia Ashley, and I can't wait to connect with you again.